March 23rd, 1945. Dawn on the western bank of the Rhine River. For Nazi Germany, this river is more than water. It is the last natural barrier protecting the heart of the Reich. On one side, 1 million Allied troops stand ready, 4,000 guns, thousands of vehicles, months of planning. Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery is about to launch Operation Plunder, the largest, most carefully prepared river assault of the entire Western Front. Then, just hours before H-hour, his aide enters with a message that will echo through Allied headquarters. "Sir, Patton crossed the Rhine last night. Not at Remagen. Not with airborne divisions, not with massed artillery, but in the dark, with assault boats at Oppenheim, 12 hours before Montgomery's grand operation." This is not a story of ego. It is a story of two different philosophies of war colliding at the final barrier to Hitler's Germany, and of what Montgomery really said when George S. Patton stole the moment history was supposed to remember as his. By March 1945, the war in Western Europe is almost decided, but not yet finished. The Allies have broken out of Normandy. Paris is free. Belgium liberated. The Ardennes offensive, Hitler's last gamble, has failed. But one obstacle remains: the Rhine River. Wide, fast, defended, fortified with artillery, demolitions, and prepared kill zones. To German commanders, the Rhine is symbolic, a psychological line that, once crossed, means the war will be fought on German soil itself. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower understands the stakes. So does Montgomery, commander of the British-Canadian 21st Army Group. Montgomery believes river crossings must be overwhelming or not attempted at all. His doctrine is clear: mass, preparation, certainty. And for the Rhine, he intends nothing less than perfection.
Operation Plunder is Montgomery's masterpiece. Months in preparation, weeks of deception, thousands of engineers and logistics units working around the clock. The plan calls for massive artillery bombardment, airborne landings, Operation Varsity, pre-built bridges, total air supremacy, complete suppression of German defenses. By dawn on March 23rd, Montgomery will hurl the British Second Army and U.S. Ninth Army across the Rhine north of the Ruhr. It will be the largest set-piece river crossing in history. Montgomery believes this is how wars are won, not by speed alone, but by certainty. And politically, plunder matters. It's the British Army's moment, proof that Britain still commands decisive operations in the final chapter of the war. Montgomery expects headlines. So does London. What he does not expect is Patton.
South of Montgomery's carefully staged crossing, General George S. Patton is watching the same river and seeing a different opportunity. Patton commands the U.S. Third Army. Where Montgomery sees risk, Patton sees tempo. German defenses opposite Patton are thinner, exhausted, disorganized. They do not expect a major crossing here. On the night of March 22, 1945, Patton acts. No grand artillery preparation, no airborne assault, no announcement, just assault boats, engineers, infantry. They cross at Oppenheim under darkness and confusion. German resistance is light. By morning, American troops are already digging in on the east bank. Casualties are shockingly low. Patton famously turns to his staff and says, "Brad, for God's sake, tell the world we're across. I want Montgomery to know." Bradley does exactly that, and at dawn, just as Montgomery prepares to unleash Operation Plunder, the news reaches his headquarters. Patton has crossed the Rhine first. When the report arrives at Montgomery's headquarters on the morning of March 23, 1945, it does not trigger an outburst. There is no recorded shouting, no slammed tables. Montgomery listens, absorbs, then responds coldly. According to staff officers present, Montgomery turns and says only, "Very well. That will make no difference to our operation." Publicly, Montgomery refuses to criticize Patton. Privately, he is furious, not at the crossing itself, but at the timing of the announcement, because the problem is not tactical, it is political. Montgomery knows Operation Plunder will now look, wrongly, to the public like a secondary act. And he knows exactly who allowed that to happen: General Omar Bradley. Bradley releases the news to the press hours before Plunder begins, ensuring headlines worldwide read, "Patton crosses the Rhine," not Montgomery, not Britain, not Operation Plunder. To Monty, this is not initiative. It is sabotage by allies. There is, however, an inconvenient fact often forgotten in this rivalry. The first Rhine crossing had already happened. On March 7, 1945, 2 weeks earlier, American forces seized the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, intact. It was accidental, unexpected, and strategically priceless. But Remagen is not the crossing Montgomery or Patton are arguing over. Why? Because Remagen was a captured bridge, not an assault crossing. It did not represent a deliberate, planned breach of the Rhine under enemy fire. Patton's crossing at Oppenheim did. So did Montgomery's at Rees and Wessel. This distinction matters. Remagen cracked the door. Patton and Montgomery forced it wide open. And by late March 1945, speed, not symbolism, will decide how many Germans escape eastward. The Rhine exposes the fundamental difference between Montgomery and Patton. Montgomery believes in certainty. His crossing uses massive artillery, airborne troops, total suppression, redundancy upon redundancy. His logic is simple. If you remove risk, you save lives. Patton believes in shock. He attacks where the enemy is weakest, before defenses can react, before command structures recover. Patton's crossing at Oppenheim costs roughly 30 casualties. Montgomery's Operation Plunder, despite success, costs several thousand casualties. Critics will later argue this proves Patton's superiority. Supporters of Montgomery respond, "Plunder smashed the northern German front and sealed the Ruhr." Both are correct. Patton fractures the line. Montgomery destroys it. History does not reward subtlety. It remembers speed.
What truly enrages Montgomery is not Patton's crossing. It is the press narrative. Bradley understands something Montgomery does not fully appreciate. In modern war, perception travels faster than armies. Patton's crossing dominates newspapers across America and Europe. Montgomery's operation, larger, more complex, more decisive, is framed as inevitable. The British press fumes. Churchill privately sympathizes with Montgomery. American reporters celebrate Patton's audacity. And the German High Command, they are stunned.
Intercepted communications show German officers refusing to believe Patton is already across the Rhine. They shift forces south, straight into Montgomery's killing zone. Unintentionally, Patton's move makes Plunder safer. This is the final irony. The rivalry does not weaken the Allied effort. It accelerates Germany's collapse. Once across the Rhine, the war changes speed. Patton's Third Army does not pause. It pours eastward, driving into southern Germany with relentless momentum. To the north, Montgomery's forces execute exactly what Operation Plunder was designed to do. The British Second Army and the U.S. Ninth Army push deep into the North German plain, cutting off escape routes, rail hubs, and command centers. The result is not competition, it is convergence. By early April 1945, Allied armies link up east of the Rhine, sealing off the Ruhr pocket, Germany's industrial heart. Inside are more than 300,000 German troops, trapped, undersupplied, and leaderless. This is the decisive encirclement of the Western Front. Patton's crossing fractures the defense. Montgomery's mass prevents escape. Together, they destroy Germany's capacity to continue organized resistance in the West. If you're watching this far, you care about history told without exaggeration. Not myths, not slogans, but events as they actually unfolded. This channel exists to do exactly that. If you want more World War II documentaries built on primary sources, clear timelines, and balanced analysis, subscribe. It helps us keep producing long-form history that respects both the facts and the people who lived them. Now, back to the story. Numbers matter in war, but only when properly understood. Patton's crossing at Oppenheim costs roughly 30 killed and wounded. Operation Plunder costs thousands. On the surface, the comparison seems damning, but scale matters. Patton crosses with limited forces against weakened defenders, exploiting surprise. Montgomery crosses with entire armies against fortified positions, ensuring the crossing will hold, no matter what Germany throws back. Plunder is not about elegance, it is about certainty, and in war, certainty is expensive. Yet casualty figures tell another story, too. German losses during the Rhine crossings and Ruhr encirclement exceed hundreds of thousands, killed, wounded, captured. The Allied choice is not between caution and speed. It is between controlled destruction and chaotic prolongation. And by April 1945, the war in the West is effectively over. Over time, the rivalry hardens into myth. Patton becomes the reckless genius. Montgomery becomes the slow politician. Reality is more complex. Patton is not improvising blindly. His engineers, bridging units, and logistics are ready. He simply refuses to wait for perfection. Montgomery is not timid. He's deliberate, shaped by World War I, where insufficient preparation cost entire generations. And despite popular belief, Patton and Bradley are not lifelong classmates. Patton graduates from West Point in 1909, Bradley in 1915. Eisenhower and Bradley are the true classmates. These distinctions matter because they reveal something essential. This war is not won by personality. It is won by systems, staff work, and commanders who understand when to move and when not to. So who was right? Patton, who crossed first, shocked the enemy and forced Germany to react? Or Montgomery, who crushed the northern front and sealed Germany's industrial heart? History answers quietly. Patton's crossing captures imagination. Montgomery's operation delivers inevitability. Without Patton, Germany regroups longer. Without Montgomery, Germany escapes faster. The Rhine is not crossed once. It is broken by pressure from every direction. When Montgomery is later asked about Patton's crossing, he offers no rebuttal, only this: the war was won by cooperation, not headlines. By April 1945, Allied armies race toward the Elbe. Berlin lies ahead, claimed by the Soviets. The rivalry fades. Victory remains.
After the Ruhr pocket closes, organized German resistance in the West collapses with startling speed. Entire divisions surrender without firing a shot. Fuel is gone, ammunition scarce, command structures fractured. German field reports from late March and early April 1945 show panic, not at Montgomery's mass, but at Patton's speed. The Third Army appears where German commanders least expect it, cutting supply lines, seizing bridges, bypassing strong points. Meanwhile, Montgomery's armies advance steadily, eliminating pockets of resistance and securing territories so rapidly that German counterattacks never materialize. This is not chaos, it is synchronized pressure. The Rhine was not Germany's last defense, it was its last illusion.
At Supreme Headquarters, Dwight D. Eisenhower watches events unfold with a clear priority. He does not reward drama, he rewards outcomes. Eisenhower refuses to choose sides in the Patton-Montgomery rivalry. Instead, he does something more important. He maintains unity. He approves Patton's rapid exploitation. He supports Montgomery's deliberate advance. And crucially, he resists pressure to race for Berlin. For Eisenhower, the Rhine crossings confirm what he already believes. Germany is finished. The priority is not prestige, but preventing unnecessary casualties and coordinating with the Soviets. It is a decision that frustrates Patton, but one that ensures the war ends without Allied armies colliding politically or militarily.
In the weeks that follow, the rivalry fades, not because it is resolved, but because events move faster than pride. Patton pushes east, liberating camps, confronting the reality of Nazi crimes. Montgomery continues north, securing ports, stabilizing occupation zones. Both men are praised, both are criticized. Patton's bluntness becomes a liability in the post-war world. Montgomery's caution is reframed as arrogance by critics who forget the wars that shaped him. Neither man fully controls his legacy. History is already writing it for them.
The Rhine crossings reveal something deeper than rivalry. They reveal that modern war is no longer won by a single commander or a single method. Speed matters. Preparation matters. Timing matters. Patton proves that initiative can unbalance an enemy faster than firepower. Montgomery proves that mass can make victory irreversible. Together, they demonstrate the truth Eisenhower understood from the beginning. No general wins a war alone. When the Rhine falls, Nazi Germany does not merely retreat, it collapses, and the argument over who crossed first becomes secondary to the fact that the war was finished within weeks.
For George S. Patton, the Rhine crossing becomes both triumph and turning point. His speed is undeniable. His results are spectacular. But in the post-Rhine weeks, Patton's strengths begin to clash with the realities of occupation. His public remarks,
about former Nazis, about displaced persons, about politics, draw scrutiny. To Patton, the war is a soldier's business. To Washington, the war is already becoming a diplomatic one. By autumn 1945, Patton is relieved of command. The man who crossed the Rhine first will never command troops in combat again. History will remember the river. It will also remember the cost of speaking too freely in peace.
Bernard Montgomery leaves the war with his reputation intact, but contested. In Britain, he is celebrated as the general who never lost a battle. Abroad, critics accuse him of caution bordering on excess. Montgomery does not retreat from criticism. He defends his record relentlessly. To him, every life saved by preparation justifies every day spent planning. The Rhine crossing remains central to his argument. It was not about being first. It was about being decisive. Montgomery will spend the rest of his life insisting that history misunderstood him.
Over time, complexity gives way to narrative. Books, films, and headlines reduce the Rhine to a race. Patton, bold, fast, victorious. Montgomery, slow, political, cautious. But war does not operate on slogans. The Rhine is crossed at multiple points, by multiple armies, for multiple reasons. Remagen cracks the door. Patton exploits surprise. Montgomery collapses in place. Simplifying this into a duel may be compelling, but it is inaccurate. Inaccuracy, not drama, is what explains why Germany falls so quickly in 1945.
Modern military doctrine studies the Rhine crossings carefully, not to choose sides, but to extract lessons. From Patton, exploit weakness, move before the enemy adapts. From Montgomery, ensure logistics, firepower, and depth make success irreversible. Modern doctrine does not favor one man. It combines both. Speed without sustainment fails. Preparation without initiative stagnates. The Rhine becomes a case study, not in rivalry, but in complementary command.
When Patton crossed the Rhine first, he won the moment. When Montgomery crossed with mass, he won the certainty. Neither outcome cancels the other. Together, they accelerate the end of the war. Germany surrenders on May 7, 1945, 6 weeks after the Rhine is breached. That is the final measure. Not who crossed first, not who spoke loudest, but how quickly the war ended after the river fell.
For Germany, the crossing of the Rhine is remembered not as a battle, but as a verdict. German officers later described the moment in stark terms. Once the Rhine was breached, there was no longer a front, only directionless movement. Units retreated without orders, civilians fled without guidance, communications collapsed. The Rhine had been the final psychological line. When it fell, belief fell with it. From that point forward, German commanders no longer planned to win. They planned to survive.
80 years later, historians still return to the Rhine, not because it was dramatic, but because it was decisive. The Rhine crossings mark the moment when Allied victory becomes inevitable, not just likely. They demonstrate how coalition warfare actually works. Different commanders, different cultures, different methods, unified purpose. Patton's speed prevents regrouping. Montgomery's mass prevents escape. The river does not reward one philosophy. It exposes the necessity of both.
So what did Montgomery mean when he said Patton's crossing would make no difference? He did not mean it was unimportant. He meant something colder and more professional. The outcome was already decided. Patton accelerated the collapse. Montgomery ensured it could not reverse. In Montgomery's view, history would judge results, not headlines. And in that sense, he was right. Rivers do not care who crosses first. They only record that someone did. The Rhine remembers assault boats at Oppenheim. It remembers airborne landings at Weasel. It remembers bridges thrown across under fire. And it remembers two men, utterly different, who helped end the most destructive war in human history. Neither perfect, neither replaceable. When Patton crossed the Rhine first, he won the moment. When Montgomery crossed with mass, he won the end game. History does not choose between them. It records that together they broke the last barrier to Nazi Germany, and within weeks, the war in Europe was over.
World War II wasn't decided by one man, one battle, or one moment. It was decided by choices made under pressure by imperfect people inside an unforgiving war. If you value documentaries that challenge popular narratives while staying grounded in historical evidence, subscribe to the channel. New long-form World War II stories are released regularly, covering forgotten battles, misunderstood commanders, and the moments history almost simplified but shouldn't have. Thank you for watching, and thank you for caring about history done right.